All right, everybody, welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Swikle, owner of Two College Brothers Moving and Storage and co-founder of the Titan Retreat and Tighten Up Training. And today I have a legend of the moving industry, somebody whose name has been out in the communities for a very long time and has been helping a lot of different moving companies grow over the last few years throughout his career. Today's guest is Larry Hinnant, and he is now the owner of Uplift LLC, which is a mover consulting firm, and is currently working in Raleigh, North Carolina with Next Stop Movers. And Larry, welcome to the show. I think you may have come on a few years ago, several years ago. You were working with some heavy hitters in the moving industry, and unfortunately some things happened there. I'll let you kind of get into it here on the show, but in your own words, kind of tell us, what's your backstory? What's been going on these last several years in the business, in your life, in the industry? How did you get into it in the first place? For those listeners that may not know, I'll let you kind of take it away.
Okay, thanks for having me, Wade. Yeah, so my backstory, I got into the moving industry, I guess it was in 2012. I'd met Chris. I was down in Wilmington and met Chris Wilhoit with Miracle Movers. He was a small company. I think at that time we had the Wilmington location and 4 trucks. And, he'd always had a vision to grow, and that was his mindset. And so I was originally from Raleigh. And so he was like, hey, I want to open up in Raleigh. I think you'd be a good person for me. And we kind of got started like that, and he had a vision of how he did things. He used to tell his employees, like, I'll be the last place you ever have to get a job, and he set up pay structures and managements, and you got a piece of the deal basically. And it was genius the way he did it. A lot of people didn't think it mathematically worked because he did give up, so much of it, but so much of the pie. But it was genius. And so anyways, came to Raleigh, we started, and it just took off. Chris was really good with the money and leveraging the banks and that sort of thing. And I was real good with sales, development, building teams. And we were so different in so many ways, but it was like, it was the yin and the yang, So we just took off. We went from, I think when I started with him, he was probably doing $1.5 million, something like that. But just getting by, really, you know what I mean? Like not, and I think we see a lot of companies doing that, where he used to say all the time, like, we're one bad accident away from being out of business. You know what I mean? And just living with that stress of, is today the day? Is today the day? Is one of my trucks going to be on a line haul, and, something catastrophic happened. And we just continued to grind. And one thing we did that we were extremely successful with was just getting involved with our community. And he taught me that, right? Like, I think when moving companies get into the moving industry, it's usually a couple guys or a guy, and he gets a couple trucks, and there's some money to be made, but not really CEO, not really like upper management, not really. It's more of a grind. I'm working in the business. I'm actually answering the phone, moving trucks. I've done it. I've done all that. I started off and that's how I started Raleigh, the Miracle Movers of Raleigh. I was on the truck, answering the phone, trying to carry a couch. And I'll never forget the day that he said, "You're the most expensive mover I got. Like, why are you on the truck?" You know what I mean? It's like, it's shifting that mindset from being a mover to being a professional and actually running a business. But anyways, long short, that took off. We wound up with, before his passing, we wound up with 11 locations across 4 states, doing over 30 million in revenue. And we were, Wade, you might have played a part in this, but we're in the middle of franchising. We'd already had the franchise manual done, and all that stuff was mapped out. We just didn't get there before he passed away. And so, basically when he passed away, I went into a dark place. Definitely wasn't expecting that conversation. A chain of events happened, and, depression, and I started drinking again, and just not doing well at all. And so it took me a couple years to get back grounded, and really my passion is helping people, and that was the mission of Miracle Movers, really. At its core was, we never sat around and said, and this is what I like to teach people is like, we didn't sit around and say, how many millions are we going to make this year? How much money are we going to make this month? We sat around and we wanted to impact lives. That's the main thing, is how many lives can I impact? And that was kind of the thing when he opened the door for me was, hey man, I'm going to do this for you. And what he gave me was crazy. He gave me not only an opportunity, but a large piece of a deal. All I had to do was do it. He put up the money. I just had to do the work. And his whole thing was, man, I just want you to touch as many lives as you can with this. And that's so I got back to the core, right? kind of was talking to you a minute ago, but like, we collaborated every day. And what happened was he went from my boss to my best friend. We would talk 10 to 15 times a day. I mean, he knew more about me than my wife knew what's going on. I knew more about his life than his wife. And sometimes they'd get frustrated with that. They'd be like, hey, are y'all in a relationship? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we were that close.
Yeah.
And I think when we're trying to build a business, we got to lean on people. We got to collaborate. We got to bounce ideas off each other. But there is a proven track record to this industry. I know you know it. I know it. There's a few people have it. Eric Works was instrumental. I remember a phone conversation I had with him one day, and I wanted to do 4 million. I was trying to get to that number. And he was like, Larry, what you do it to me, and you can't do it for me. You can't operate the same. And I think with Next Stop, like I'm working with them now, and that was kind of the thing when I kind of came on with them was like, man, we keep hitting this brick wall. Like we can't figure out how to get over this mark. And I'm just a systems and process guy. You know what I mean? If you're going to scale, if you're wanting to grow in any kind of way, like there's systems and processes. We don't manage people, we manage process. And I've kind of introduced that to them. I've been working with them for about 90 days, and they've been in business, I think 7 years, and March is going to be their record year. So awesome. Systems and process, you know what I mean? It works. So yeah, that's kind of my thing with that. Just love helping people. And I think that's the mission. Moving just happens to be the thing that I do. I tell people that a lot, right? It's just like, I think we should use our company as a vessel to change lives. And that's something that Chris had shared with me and taught me. And that's kind of my mission right now is how can I take that piece of him and help transform? And he loved the moving industry. And so like, how can I touch lives and still do that with him? Kind of keeps him alive in my heart, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's some powerful stuff, man. For the listeners who may not know, there might be some newer companies on listening to this episode. But if you go way back to some of the early episodes, you can learn about Miracle Movers and the stories. I believe you were on in the past, Larry, and I know Chris was, and he was a friend of mine that had come out to some of those early masterminds that really helped us grow the business. And we were all shocked to hear of the news of his passing because he had built such a powerful, well-known, reputable company with a lot of different locations with Miracle Movers, and they were definitely a force to be reckoned with. And he was one of my mentors and role models when it came to figuring this game out. And, Eric Works, he was right along with them, all those OG guys. And we were all just shocked at the news when we found out about that. But, it sounds like being as close to him as you were, that was, it probably hit you, the hardest next to his immediate family and his wife. And, did Miracle Movers, were you guys able to how did you keep going after that? I know you said,
so I had I kind of exited, and at the time, I'm not sure what her role is now. Samantha wasn't like, it was pretty much me and Chris running everything. So I think she had to kind of, once she was able to get her bearings back, I think she stepped in some now. We had I'd reached out to another company that we know, and I'll leave his name out, but like to help him try to manage it. And it just, I think that without to get in too much to it, I think the debt and things, just the way things were intermeshed and not really properly set up. They're still rolling. So I will say that they're still going, but I don't know what, maybe some locations have had to pull back a little bit. I think my guess is taking a few steps back in order to move forward. It is kind of what they've had to do.
Yeah.
But what I know is, I think this is with any company, right? Is like they lost, when you lose visionary, it puts companies in a tailspin, you know what I mean? And so like when you don't have the visionary, so him and I were gone, the people that build it, I think that's been the struggle. It's just like finding, how do you find that again? And I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know what that answer is for them. I don't know what the future is. Some things are, so it's still a bunch of stuff going on, of course. I don't want to get into all that, but like, I think it's in a place to where it's just having to like figure its way out, And so I don't know what that looks like for her. Well, I've kind of just pulled away and said, you know what, I want to go do this, and I thought about starting another moving company, and I've been working with Tim over at Moversville, and, and kind of he's helping me with some stuff with this. And I was just like, this is what my passion is. And he really, man, like, and it was kind of something Chris had told me in the past too, was like, he's like, man, I think you get started, man. Like, God will just, you're going to wind up where you're supposed to be. You know what I mean? Like you might wind up with a partner, still deal with somebody, you may wind up, you know what I mean? So like, It's just I'm just going through with what my passion is, helping people, and just trust the process. See what the outcome is.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel like a lot of people get started in this business. It's ready, shoot, aim, and
Right.
you just go ahead, and the best thing to do is just get going, get started,
Yeah.
just go, and then you start to figure it out if you've got the right makeup, if you're cut from the right cloth to be an entrepreneur and a moving company owner and operator. The hardest thing to do is just to get going, and then you just kind of let God take you where you need to go. And it sounds like you played an instrumental role in that culture as well. You took it from a very
So
heavily people driven business to a very process driven business. And that's what you're ultimately working with these companies now to do, is to figure out where the holes are, with what you've learned over the last 15 years in this industry. And finding out how to improve those cultures and how to create those processes. What are some of those things that you're bringing to the table with these new companies, especially the one you're working with now, Next Stop
yes,
Movers?
yeah. The first thing was and just a little instrumental stuff, but the first thing that we really spend a lot of time, Josh and Hill are the owners over there, and we spend a lot of time talking about culture. A lot of time talk. I agree with you on that. Like it's up here, I don't know about you guys' market. It's gotten real competitive as far as you know. One thing I developed, especially at the Raleigh location of Miracle Movers, that was my location. Was we had some of the best talent. We had. I mean, we weren't movers; we were professional, and that's something that, like, when I hold meetings, I like to talk about. Whether it's a crew leader or a mover, like, we're going to wrap it professionally. We're going to be the professional. We're going to be the best. You don't have to be the best, but like, we're going to train to be the best, and really take pride in what we do. And I mean, that trickles down because I think we focus so much on, and I'll get into the price thing is a big thing with us, but like, the price that, what the labor cost is through the roof. I mean, we got a competitor, and I don't know, but maybe I'm just been out of it for a minute, but like, there's guys paying $35 an hour for movers, and that's just such a culture shock for me because, like, when I was running Riley, I mean, if you had a CDL and was driving our tractor, you were making 22, you know what I mean? Which
Mm-hmm.
we pay percentage on line haul, so it's more than $22 an hour. But like, I'm just in shock. But like, but those guys aren't happy. That's the
Mm-hmm.
crazy thing. A lot of these guys used to work for me, and they're now reaching out. Now that they know that I'm back, and they're like, they're not happy. And so, like, it's this is the core of what I'm talking about. Is like, it's not about the money. You know what I mean? Like, we always put so much emphasis on money, and it's just not about the money, man. It's like, these guys want to be happy. Some people, it's a Saturday off so he can take his daughter to horseback riding, or, and really get to know people. And that's the culture. That's what I'm doing with Next Stop right now. Is like, we had a meeting, and I asked him, I said, I always, when I hold a meeting, I always give employees time to talk. The floor is always open. It's got to be a safe space, man. Like, it's got to be, it can't be this, like, the worst thing you can do is beat a crew down and then send them to a client's house. Just like scream at them and tell them about yesterday and how everything went wrong, and then hand them their paperwork and say, go move this house today. And expect them to have a smile, on their face and handle the customer right, and not have damage. So it's like, I think sometimes as owners, we get it wrong because we're so stressed out about, whatever could be going on, right? I got to make payroll, whatever, whatever the challenges are. And then we go at it wrong. And so we spend a lot of time with culture there. And one thing that they've done is they've let me implement, letting the movers talk, and they've discovered so much about their company just from listening to their employees, and things they didn't know were going on through operations, and just all kinds of things get discovered. And here's what winds up happening when you change culture. Now these guys feel a part of. Now when they load their truck up in the morning, they're getting ready to go out, they feel a part of. It's almost like they're a part of this company. They're not just, hey, go move this furniture, and oh, by the way, don't have any damage. So really, we spend a lot of time on culture.
Yeah. That's important. I mean, a few years ago, I mean, everything has gone up so much since
It
COVID
has.
times. Before
Yeah.
COVID, I mean, we were paying guys, our best guys were maybe making 15,
Yeah.
$16 an hour.
Plus tips.
Now
I mean, and they're still, yeah.
that's minimum wage in
Yep.
most states. I mean,
It
in
is.
Florida, I think is going to be 15 September 1st. I want to say we're at
Right.
14 hour. Maybe it was last September 1st. We were at 15. Either way, we had to, significantly increase the baseline pay to just attract good talent. I think that's where, like, good baseline pay comes into play, is attracting that talent. But the
It is.
culture is ultimately what allows you to keep that talent, because everybody else is going to start attracting that talent and paying out more. And you got
Correct.
inflation and the cost of living. People got to be able to live and pay their bills and enjoy their lives to an extent. But at the end of the day, they think that that's what keeps you in the job, and there's a level to that, but it's only one piece of that pie. And having the
Correct.
fulfillment that you're talking about is another key element that people need to have as part of their quote unquote compensation package. Somewhere where they know they're making a difference, they know that they're happy where they're at, they like the people they work with, they have opportunities to continue to grow personally, professionally, financially.
Right.
So like, what are some of the things that you do in order to perpetuate that?
Well, so we obviously have to pay a little more. One thing I've done, so with vision and with, there's always multiple ways to get there, right? And I'm working with the owners, so bottom line is what matters to them, right? They care about their people. It's not that, but like at the end of the day, hey, I need a net profit. I want to scale. We're looking at another location as we speak, but I want to scale. I want to do these things. And I want my guys, they do at heart. I want my people to, they had the biggest payroll a week or so ago that they'd ever seen. And they were so excited because not only did they have that payroll, and, I think a lot of times owners freak out when they see a big number payroll. And I said, my next sentence to them was, how was your net for the week? Because it's like, if you're paying out that kind of money, if you set the thing up right, that only means you made a lot of money. If everything is set up in parameters, and that's the cool thing about this industry is like it's pretty simple actually. Once you have the roadmap, this thing gets real. It's simple. So if I've got a $50,000-$60,000 payroll, that means I had a good week. As long as my operations is operating within the parameters that they should be.
Right.
And so that's one thing. So, but one thing we've done is I analyze, right? So when I started with these guys, they were doing 190 days ago. They were doing 120, 140K a month. And they're averaging about 1,600 a move. So less than 90 days, we're going to do 260K this month. So over $100,000 increase, and we're averaging just over 3,000 a move.
Wow.
Correct. 3,000 a move per copy. So what have I done is, so I just analyze that and look at it. Okay, so if we don't get any more, oh, and by the way, let me say this, $0 in Google Payday.
Wow. So what are you doing?
A lot of this community, like you said, I've been in the industry for a long time, but these guys had a good name in the industry too. So we just married up a couple things that they already had working, put together with some other ideas. The thing about that is I started looking at what's the competition doing and what's really going on. And so like February wasn't that good. I don't know about for you guys, they thought they were going to
always
you expect that coming in. They thought they were going to have a loser, and the crazy part is I think they actually still made a little money. So if you're making money in winter, even if you're breaking even, you're good. You know what I mean? Like you expect a little bit, but they actually did, and then March took off. But like I call it we stopped selling price. We stop selling price, and it takes a minute to get everybody wrapped because they get caught up in fear. And it's like, well, I got to make payroll, like, you know what I mean? But like, we're not going to sell to the bottom. I've got competition that wants to do that, and I'm going to let them do that. So how do we get away from that? Is we teach. We're not going to. So I feel like when you discount them, and we all make discounts. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we don't discount a move, but I call it devaluing my service. I'm going to devalue my service. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to start quoting. I'm going to get scared because my competition is going to do it for $1,000 cheaper. And so I'm going to go ahead and start devaluing my service. And so what I've done is, and I think Louis Massaro, I may have got the idea from him. I'm not sure where it came from, but like years ago is like the way I present the way I present move day. So I don't, when we sell, and we're teaching this is that we're not selling, we explain the neoprene floor runner. We explain how we're going to pad wrap the piano. We explain. So as we're doing the walkthrough, this is why this can spin a bunch of different ways. I'm still really big on on-sites. I'm still real big on doing on-site estimates. And the reason is because as I'm walking through my house, and I have a way I do it, I'm going to pause at certain items and say, so Miss Jones, let me just explain to you, when you go with us, this is how we're going to take care of this baby grand piano. And I literally walk her through it. And you can literally, if you watch people, I'm big on reading people. You can just see the tension go down. I can read the body language, that nice black lacquer, you know what I mean? We're all the $30,000 piano, you know what I mean? And so when I see that, and then I go through the whole thing, and And then I talk about protecting the house, you know, and I'm able to point things out. And so I'm still a real big fan, and maybe I'm old school, but I'm still real big uh, on doing on sites when I can. But I mean, we do a lot of $1 million homes, so that makes sense. And are we going to do on site on an apartment? No, we're not. You know what I mean? But
Right.
um, if I've done my job properly, by the time I get to trying to close it, I close in the house. I don't believe in I'll send you an estimate this afternoon. I believe in doing a thorough boom, and I'm going in. So I'm not going to do an on site today. I'm going to book a move today.
Mm.
Right. When I walk in that house, I am thinking about I'm booking this job.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was doing a lot of the on-sites, I would tell myself there's a psychology to that. It
Yes.
honestly, when you put that sub in your subconscious that I am going to book this move,
Yep.
you just behave differently. You
You do.
act differently. You're not fearful. You're coming at it with a more confidence. And I think people pick up on that. It's very, very subtle, but a lot of our ideal clientele are women, and women have great intuition most of the time,
They
and they
do.
can pick up on that, those little confidence markers. And I remember one day specifically, I had 4 on-sites, and I said to myself, I woke up, I was gonna go in, and I was gonna put myself in a state of mind with the confidence, knowing that I would book each one of those moves as I went into it. And I went in with a little kit of stretch wrap and moving pads and a little basket with my computer, ready to work up the quote there on the spot, and offer to do a demonstration on how we protect the furniture. And nobody took me up on actually protecting their furniture, but just being prepared to do that confidently and showing them how we would go about wrapping a piece, and being prepared to do it right there on the spot for them allowed me to walk out with 4 for 4 bookings on high end
Correct.
moves. And I think a lot
Correct.
of people walk into it as just another thing on their calendar, just another task they got to go do. Just got to get this out of the way, drive across town and go do this on site. Well, hopefully we get it at least. But you change your state, and that energy is contagious. That confidence people pick up on, and you got to be confident in yourself if you expect the customer to be confident with you.
Yeah, and just and we do. I mean, sometimes we still get into the price war thing, and it was so funny because I had one the other day that this lady just kept back and forth, nickel and diamond. And then finally I just said and I did, and I said it respectfully, but I was like, so, and she's a professional. And I said, so you expect your client to pay you your price, right? So I'm not going to take your offer. And she kept on, she kind of got rude with it, just like kept on. And it's like over $300. And so finally I just looked at her. I said, yeah. She said, well, I got somebody else to do it for this. And I said, you should probably book with them. And, it's the learning that, like, and this is exactly what I told the owner when I hung up the phone. I said, isn't it nice to not have to book a job?
Mm-hmm.
So 2 months ago, we'd have booked that job there, right? Because we're trying to make payroll. We're in a stress situation. We got it. And we're selling to the bottom, and we're allowing the competition we say we're allowing the competition to do it. It's just like, no, we got to instill another way.
And half the time the competition's lowballing them anyway, and they're going to end up being just
So
as
they're
much or
lowballing
more.
them. And here's the funny part about it is, like, once you really, and this is something else too, that I teach these guys too, is I know everything about my competition. I know how many trucks they got. I know where their warehouse is. I know where they're located. I know, if I'm in the game, I'm in it to win. And that's not a bad thing. I believe in collaborating. I believe in, we talked about Ryan with another company. Like, there's some good, I've made more friends in this industry than I had enemies, and I've, Eric Works. And I mean, there's just several guys that have been instrumental in my path. And I think you're always, Wayne Ray was with Coastal he was another guy that he told me one time, he called me like 2 weeks before he passed away. And he said, Larry, just to let you know, man, I don't know why he did it. Like, maybe he knew, I don't know, but he just was like, moving companies don't go out of business because they run out of money. They go out of business because they become uninsurable. Don't ever forget that. And that just those nuggets that different guys have given me along the way is just like, we always think about money and sales, but like, we don't think about operations. We don't think about safety and compliance. We don't think about, and so a lot of that is I know we're talking a little more on the sales side this morning, but all that stuff, I wound up putting together a safety and compliance team. And I mean, I had a guy that's all he did at Miracle, was report to me immediately, and certain protocol for if there's an accident, and just, all the stuff that protects us.
Well, it's how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you can get those fundamentals down pat, you're not only going to be safer, you're going to be, a lot less claims, but that means that you're going to have a lot less damage claims from the customer, a lot more happy customers, a lot more repeat and referral business. And that stuff just starts to stack up and
It's a
snowball.
snowball, right? That's right. It's a total snowball. And I think the biggest thing is, is word of mouth and getting active in my community and then just not, standing firm. Like you said, you were talking about confidence early, I don't, and we do a lot of, actually I gotten this from Eric at one point. I never implemented it in the past, but we do a lot of, I don't want to call it flat rate, but we bind a lot of stuff. The people
Mhm.
that I have doing estimates are spot on. And so we'll go in and we'll bind it not to exceed, and when we get a lot of jobs like that, we don't, one thing these guys do, I really kind of disagreed with it in the beginning. I never said nothing, but the more I thought through it and ran the numbers, they're actually smart. So we don't charge a travel charge. In the state of North Carolina, the way the tariff reads is you can, you can charge more, like, for example, if you run the numbers, 4 trucks to me, and the rate is, so there it's the top of what we can charge, but you actually make more money than you would charging a 1 hour travel charge. So everybody charges travel charge, or most people in this industry charge travel charge. These guys don't. What a selling tool! What a selling tool! Hey, just to let you know, Miss Jones, like, so if we don't charge travel time, and we serve it up like, hey, we believe that you should only pay for what you're using. So we start our clock when we get here, and man, that alone, but mathematically, when you figure the $30 extra per hour or whatever, if it's, I think it took 4 hours for it to mathematically be a win.
So you roll it into the
It gets rolled
hourly.
into the hourly,
Gotcha.
but it's a game changer as far as like one more thing that I can edge the competition out with.
Yeah, that's interesting because we've gone back and forth a little bit. There was a period of time where we had the travel charge, and then there was a period of
Right.
time where we rolled it up together, but our hourly rate was like over $200 an hour. And
Which
then,
freaks me out
yeah, people
when I'm
would,
selling
what
that.
I realized with that is that people would only hear the hourly rate, and they'd hear the next guy, two guys for $200 an hour. Then the next guy down the road is doing three guys for 129 an hour. But then you look at, well, yeah, they've got 129 an hour with three guys, but they've got, they've got the travel charge, they've got all these
A fuel
upcharges, they got a
surcharge. Yeah.
25%
Yeah.
service fee. What the heck is a
That's right.
25% service fee? That just means that their hourly rate isn't 129 an hour. Their hourly rate is like 170 something an hour. And and they're making it back in all these other different ways. And they're going to lowball it. They're going to say that this, 4-bedroom house is going to get
That's
done in 5 hours with three guys. No, that house is going
Mitch
to probably
Jones
take
knows it
8
can't get done.
hours.
Even the client knows it can't be. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a client and said, Mitch Jones, like, let's think about this for a second. Like, you know this can't be done. Like, you know nothing about the moving industry, and you know this isn't going to get done in 5 hours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and if you can get your inventories down accurately, you dial in your CRM to be able to
Yeah.
calculate the total, or your cube sheet. Hopefully, you're not just using paper and pen cube sheets anymore. You've
No.
got a CRM in 2026,
Right.
but I mean, you could theoretically,
You could. Yeah.
you give them a flat rate, and the other guy's giving them a low hourly, saying, yeah, it'll take 3 hours. It's going to be whatever hourly rate, or 5 hours, whatever. It's going to be whatever hourly rate. When you're sitting there saying, I mean, you're quoting a flat rate for 8-10 hours or more guys or whatever the case may be. You get the customer to start asking questions. You say, well, why aren't they confident enough to give you an hourly rate? Is it because maybe they're bait and switching? Because I see that a lot of times in this industry. I'm curious to hear, like, you say you learn a lot about your competition, and I've heard mixed things on that too, where it's like, just focus on your lane, don't worry about what the competition's doing. But I think it's important. I'm on the page with you where you should know about your competition,
At
not so
at
you
least
can,
have an
not
idea.
to badmouth them, but to
It,
get
no,
the
never.
questions that
Yes,
you get the
that's right.
customer to ask,
I
so
know
that
what
they
to
can poke
ask.
holes in it themselves and make that determination themselves.
And that's definitely on point with you on that. I preach this is we don't ever put the competition down. You know what I mean? It's distasteful. At the end of the day, I tell the customers this, I'll be direct with them. I'm like, so at the end of the day, we all use the same trucks, Freightliner, International, we all use the same vendor. We get the same dollies, the reloperators. We buy the pads from the same vendors, most of us. Same strength. We buy, a lot of us are buying boxes from the same vendor. The only difference is the people. And that's, I can't tell you how many times I sell them on that. Like, it's the people, right? And here's another thing too, is like, I told somebody the other day, is like, I was speaking in front of a bunch of realtors, and I'm like, here's the deal. Like, things are going to go wrong in the moving industry. Like, hardwood floor is going to get scratched. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's never going to happen, right? The defining, in my opinion, the defining moment of a good company is somebody that handles it immediately, has a process, and takes care of the client. And that, I think we get so caught up in, we're perfect. No, we're not. We're not. We're human. Our guys are
Yeah.
human. Things are going to happen, right? Now we're going to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen, and we're going to train guys, and that's something that amazes me too when I start working with a lot. Most of the companies I'll work with are mid-sized, so they're doing $1 million, $1.5 million. Can't really get over that hurdle. They want to make more money, but they're, damage claims are through the roof. They're paying 10, 15% in claims. And they're just losing money in all ways. And a lot of it's just training. A lot of it is systems and processes, and then training my people to be better. And they don't know. They started off with a couple of trucks, and they hit a market. They got a little successful, and then now it's like we want to do this. And so that's usually who I'm working with. But that was another thing with Next Stop. They didn't have a claims process. If something happened, they were under the gun or felt like they felt bad. Obviously, nobody wants anything to happen to their client. They just give them what they want over the phone right then. Maybe before the client paid the bill, sometimes bills weren't getting paid because they felt bad about it. And it's like, hey, no, we got a claims process, not a problem. Larry's going to send you over the claim. Fill that out, submit it back. Once we do, we'll get the claim processed. You got to pay the bill. And it's just amazing. And then now, like, it's gone down to, I think they were. And I don't know what the national average is now, but it was around 1%. And that's a target I always try to get to. Can I run claims at 1% of my revenue?
Yeah.
I agree with you.
We've got a
I think things have increased, but
yeah, it's called our chief of raving fans, and it's somebody who is essentially a customer service manager. We've branded it to be a more positive outlook than just like a claims manager, because people are claims manager and they're like, oh, you have claims. But if you have a chief of raving fans, this person's ultimately responsible for making every customer a raving fan. They're checking in with the customer 7 days out, seeing how the packing's going, an opportunity to upsell packing services or more materials. But they're also establishing that line of communication. We've got our ops team that checks in a day or two before to confirm all the details and everything on there. So they're getting 2 touches after they've booked before the move, so that they, we got all the information correctly. Sales didn't make a mistake, forget, something, or put the time down wrong.
Boxes, whatever. Wrong address.
And then she's checking in during and after the move. And a lot of movers will say, well, that's just opening up a can of worms, because you're asking them if there were any claims when they may have never, reported a claim if they had it. Now you're asking them for the claim, but I would rather know about the claim, because otherwise that customer is just going to walk away like maybe they're satisfied, they had some claims, they're not going to recommend you. But if you give them an opportunity to give you the feedback on how everything actually went, you can make real-time adjustments with your team, with your process. You can jump on issues right away, and then ultimately turn that otherwise mediocre, lukewarm customer who may not necessarily go leave a 1-star, but certainly isn't going to refer you, into a raving fan who's going to leave a 5-star and then ultimately end up referring you to people and using you again down the road, because they know that you stand by your word. You want to know how you're doing. You're making the adjustments as necessary, and you're taking care of their issues if you had that issue. And that's, you think that of that as an expense with having to pay somebody in-house to do that, or having to pay out extra claims. But over time, it becomes an investment, because you're getting so much repeat referral business, and you're making those adjustments in real time, so that a claim that went unreported with this customer, or would have gone unreported with this customer, doesn't end up becoming a worse claim with a very irrational, difficult customer down the road, because you've already been able to make that fix with the easy to work with customer, so that it doesn't compound and become an issue with the difficult to work with customer. And it's just showing that goodwill, that good faith, that ability. But what training are you bringing in?
So we do. You kind of led me into that. That's the thing I was thinking too. Like, because I want to know, right? Like, how bad is it to not know, right? And like, I think for an owner, it may be depending on what the structure is of the owner. There was things like when I was with Chris, he didn't want to know. He wanted me to handle everything. Like, you don't need to. I don't. If the building's on fire, give me a call. Other than that, I trust you. We've made a lot of money together. Keep it moving.
Call the fire department first.
There's different owner levels, but if you're younger in it, so we use Smart Moving, which I know you probably do too, Wade. But they got that thing to where like they can, if you see the feedback or whatever, so that may not get pushed to Google, but like, what a tool to use, right? Because like, if I'm getting a 3-star on this thing and I read those, and like you said, like a couple things should be handled in a meeting, right? Like crew meetings and stuff. And I find a lot of these owners don't even know how to have a true crew leader meeting. Like they don't even know how to these are things that I can help with. I even hold some of the meetings like for Next Stop. Like they've gotten to the point now like, hey man, will you head this up for me? Like they just want to be there. They'll listen, but they don't know how to go with it. Right. And so it's like, I always want to talk about when I'm doing my training, I want to talk about, hey, let's talk about the week. Let's talk about, so one thing I love to do is let's talk about the good things. Let's talk about the wins, right? So like, we'll maybe call out some, hey, this crew had this, got this 5-star review on Google, or we had this challenge. Hey, let's give them a hand. You know what I mean? So we're going to talk about wins. And then I don't like to call mistakes or bad things. I like to talk about opportunities, right? Where's opportunities for growth? We had this happen. What do we do in this situation? How do we, and some of this stuff, like you don't really think about it until it's real time. There's so many things there's so many moving pieces in the moving industry that it's like, there's no way to train on everything at once, right? It's just, it's a constant battle of this occurrence happened, this happened. Well, where was the spotter at? Didn't have a spotter when you backed up, all the little. And I tell their operations,
train's not something you did. It's something you do. It's got to.
Yeah.
If you try to dump everything on a new mover at the very beginning, it's gonna be drinking out of a fire hose. And they got to master the fundamentals first.
Correct.
And then go to the next level, just like a video.
Correct.
Game. You got to beat that first boss, and then you got to go play the next one.
It never stops. The operations guys like, man, I've already gone over this. I'm like, and you're going to go over it 10,000 more times. Like it never. So a couple things are happening too. Is like, I don't ever I think a lot of times, especially it was this way at Miracle because we had so many movers, but like, they're like, oh, I can't get all my guys together. So what? You know what I mean? Like we'll run a meeting today. There's only going to be 15 movers or 20 because 10 are out of state, whatever. Doesn't matter. If we continue to do this, you're going to catch them. They're going to catch the meeting sooner or later, right? Like it's a constant. You're never going to, if you're a successful moving company, you're never going to have all your crews off the road. You hope not. You know what I mean? Like you hope not, that's, but
it's so ingrained in the culture too. You got these group of guys you're talking about, and then those guys are out, and then it reverses. But they're going to talk. All these guys talk. They talk about they're going to be working together at some point most of the time.
Exactly, and then
you got to teach people 100 times more than you think you do to get a point across. Typically, I heard that back in December, and they said you need to train 100 times more and reinforce 100 times more than you think you do to get a point across.
Yeah, and the problem with what we're doing, and we've all had the catastrophic. We had it. I mean, maybe everybody hasn't, but we've had the bad accidents and stuff. Is like, unfortunately, we're driving death traps. How much do we talk about not being on the phone? Like we just went to tablets. By the way, that I taught those guys. We were doing it at Miracle, but I got Next Stop to do it. It's like, go to tablets, man. Get them off their phone, right? They can put the GPS on the tablet, mount the tablet in the truck. There's no reason to got to get these guys off the phones. A little bit of a rain, look down and look at your address or look at a text it just things happen so fast, man. And there's no, so I'm real big on safety and compliance, and from a point of like, if you want to go into growth, we had TransGuard. I got real close with those guys and when some things were happening and as we were growing, it's like, they wind up coming in. I mean, they want to know like who's handling safety and compliance. They need to feel comfortable, And there was times like where we had to implement new stuff, and my agent was, I don't know if you know Christopher Kauskas, he's great, but like we came up with processes, because TransGuard wanted to see, like, show me what you're doing about this, like show me, because they were getting antsy, we start running 140 trucks, and things start happening. I can't imagine. Take FedEx for example, right? I mean, how many accidents a day do they have? There's so many trucks. There's a point in which like things are going to happen, and there is just no way, I think that was the point that we reached. And that's really where, at that point, you start, I had went to Chris and was like, hey, man, like, we got to get the liability off of us. Like, that's when franchise becomes real attractive, right? Like, when the personal liability exceeds the win. And that was the mindset, because he never wanted to give up anything, really, as far as, any sort of ownership. He wanted to grow this thing as big as he could, but, like, the liability, you know what I mean? And that's something that I try to work with owners on is what's that liability look like? And there's different ways to do it. You know what I mean? There's many ways to, we had leasing companies with trucks. And I mean, there's ways to shield it all. But it's just so much. But anyway, so as far as training is just it's as much as like training the movers. And I think we get in a routine of I got 3 new movers starting today and I put them with this crew and they're gone, and it's like, the problem with that is you'll get feedback from your movers, your really good movers, if they're not on board all the way. So I talk a lot about buy-in. buy-in's important, right? So we can come up with you and I could come up with, we could go start a company tomorrow and come up with any system and process. None of that matters if I don't have the buy-in. If I can't get buy-in, none of what I come up with is going to make a difference, because as soon as they walk out of my office or walk out of the room, they're going to go back to doing whatever they want to do. Mm-hmm. And I don't think buy-in's talked enough about.
What are you doing to get the buy-in?
Well, I think you start off with culture. You know what I mean? I think you have to get the culture right. They have to know that you have their back. One thing I've always done is it really works well when they notice a difference in their paycheck, right? So we had movers, and I just put it out there. We had movers that made $1,900 last week. They've never in history at Next Stop Movers had anybody ever made that kind of money as a mover. So I'm going to ask you and demand more of you, and I need you to do that up front. You're going to have to trust in me, and here's what I'm planning on doing, A, B, and C, and here will be the result to you. When A, B, and C happens and then D is in the paycheck, it's lights out. They're bought in. They got you now. Everything you said. So it's got to be about does he do what he says, right? I think a lot of times a lot of times companies, try to find ways to cut corners in payroll. That was something that absolutely in the beginning Chris made clear to me, and he would not tolerate it, was we don't screw our movers. If we need to cut a corner, it won't ever be from a mover. He was a mover mindset. And I was too, because I came off a truck, right? So it's different. It hits different when you are a mover, and I think a lot of times that's where we want to beat and bang, trim this or, just pay him this on this job. And that's just, you're going to lose the buy-in once and some of these guys, Wade, like you got guys, man, they've been around, dude. They've seen these real good guys, man. They've been around, dude. They know what's right. They know what's not right. And, so that's the first thing, is I think you demand more, but you got to sell the vision, right? So, we used to, when we were looking to open a new location, you can't expand past your people. So there's that too, right? Like we want to go to Atlanta, or we want to go to, Pittsburgh, or some of these locations we were going to. We can't do it without the right guy or girl. We can't do it without the right person, and so we start cultivating that early. So I'm selling a vision to the team. And I have to sell to these movers. I talk about it every time. Like, if the back of the truck is where your vision is, you're missing the whole point. And so we start really early with these guys talking about that. Do you want to get in operations? Do you want to get in sales? Do you want to, that's the buy-in, right? Are you looking for a career, or are you just moving furniture because you're in college? And there is no wrong answer. You know what I mean? We need those guys too. There is no, but I'm trying to identify who are my key players. And then I'm going to push them and develop them. And really, my rule with them is, if I can't send you to a city you've never been in, and you can't self-generate, you can't run a city for me.
So the salesmanship.
I've got to teach you that. And that's my job, to teach you that. My job is, hey, I'm going to drop Larry in Atlanta or wherever. And I know he doesn't know a soul, but how many realtors, how fast will he get in front of them? How fast will he be able to sell it? How fast? Because this way we can all buy trucks. We get trucks. I mean, that's not that. I mean, we got smart
barrier to entry, but it's a high barrier to success.
Yeah, man, we can. I mean, we literally, Chris and I would start up locations in 30 minutes. Hey, we're going to this city. Call a CPA, LLC, develop, trucks allotted. I mean, literally in 30 minutes, you can. I've already got my guy in the office creating a smart move, and all that simple. And the challenge is, who's that person that can actually go sell it? That can actually sell it.
You gotta have a dream so big everybody else's can fit inside, and make it a career. Make there be room for growth, not just a dead end mover job.
And Chris, one thing you always talked about was and I've come to believe it, man. This thing is stressful. It's a stressful industry, and the point in which the return ain't huge, I'm out. that was his thing, man. I mean, how many nights, I don't even tell you, we stay awake at night with trucks all over the roads and, just stressed out, worried about it. If it's I'm not doing this for no money. And I think that's, that's kind of the vision. But teaching that culture and letting people know there's an opportunity, I think is key. And you know what, man, I've been a part of, and it's been done for me. And this is my vision. This is my passion, is creating opportunities that people otherwise might not would have had. And that's life-changing. That can be absolutely life-changing. I made more money with Chris than I would have ever dreamed that I could have made, and I'd never seen it coming. And you know what? I used to get mad at him because it'd be a Saturday night at 7 p.m. And I was we had 4 U-Hauls or Penske rental trucks, and he would text me at 7. I'd be there by myself. The last one, I need you to return these 4 trucks tonight, get the pads and dollies off of them. And I'm going, all these crews came in, Chris, and you want me to do this by myself? And I'll never forget one day he looked at me. We were sitting in the office, in the attorney's office, and he looked at me and he said, damn, U-Haul trucks paid off this. And I never knew that what he was doing was testing, where's my will? How far will he go? How far? Mm-hmm. And that was how he did things. You know, how far will this guy go for me? And that's, I feel like that gets lost. You know, I think times have changed, right? Times have just changed with people. But, you know, it's like pay me and then I'll do the work, you know? And so what I try to build a culture of is, hey, man, I need for you to buy in because, like, we don't just have unlimited funds. But here's my vision. And here's where I'm going to take this. And trust me, I've done it before, so it's going to happen. And here's going to be, you know, and they buy into that. I think culture comes down from honesty. When people can see a genuine, honest, they want to help you. And people actually, you know, I say this all the time. It's like, people don't come to work today and say, let me go damage some furniture.
Right. They want to succeed.
People want to do good. Yeah. And so are we feeding them the good?
Right.
But I think
that goes down to the fulfillment that you were talking about before. You know, that's where a lot of companies get wrong is they don't equip their teams with the right equipment, the right tools, the right training to go and do good. And then they get upset because the owner is upset that they messed something up, that the owner never showed them what to do or how to do it or gave them the tools to do it.
Correct.
And when you can give them the tools to succeed at their job, everybody likes what they're good at. And if you can get these guys to be good at what they do, then they're going to like work. They're going to like what they have going on. They're going to be fulfilled. And that's just going to carry over to the next person, the next person. And that's ultimately, you know, how that culture replicates itself.
And I think a lot of times I went back to Miracle for a brief minute and tried to help them with some stuff. And I was looking at everything. I knew all the players. I knew all the, you know, pretty much everybody between either me or Chris had hired. And I remember looking at it and I told Samantha, I was like, she's like, what's wrong? And I was like, send out an email to every manager and up and ask them what they do during the day. Just ask them, just a nice email. Hey, they know you hadn't been really that present, right? Just ask them, what are you doing today? And the last line, I need for you to tell me what your passion is. Mm. Do you know that 90% of the people hated their job? Like we got all the players in the wrong. And here's the thing, there was talent there. Well, me and Chris, they shifted the people. They hated what they were doing. So you brought up claims a minute ago. Like it takes the right person to be able to handle claims. Like I can do claims. It doesn't bother me. I don't take offense if I get cussed out. Like it's a delicate. You got to know how to handle the customer and all that stuff. But like to a weak, I don't want to say weak-minded, but like to a sensitive mind, they're hearing that all day long, and they go home wanting to kill themselves. Like it's just not. They take it, they internalize it, and they take it all personal. And so I think a lot of companies get it wrong where they got the wrong people. You know, they got the right people. They got them in the wrong position. You know, they got them in the wrong position. And so one thing I've worked with Josh and Hale on is like, we don't hire people. We create the position. There's a need, right? So I'm real big on the phone thing, by the way. So we just hired a girl. She used to work with me in the past. So she's amazing. She knows, it's one of the owner's wives actually, but like, she's really good on the phone. She's got a great personality. She understands every customer goes into CRM, all the basic things that we need to measure and got drip campaigns and there's reasons behind everything. And she buys in and gets all that. But like, you know, if you were to put her in the wrong position, dude, like, you know, and that's what we had. We had somebody on the phone that just, you know, I don't know if their passion was there or wasn't there or, and some of it is skill set. Some of this stuff can't be taught. You know, unfortunately, right. Some of it, I don't know how you get passion. If you were to hear Tabitha on the phone, she's amazing. Like you can feel the energy of her and the customers buy into that.
Yeah, getting the right people with the right attitudes in overweighs the experience most of the time. You know, we want to hire for attitude and train for aptitude and make that become part of the culture, because if they've got a great attitude, they're going to want to learn, and they're going to want to learn quickly, and they're going to pick it up quickly because they know that they can, and they're excited to be able to do that. But if they're one of these old dogs that have been in the moving business for 30 years and they've just got bad habits and a bad attitude, they might know how to pat a couch, but how is that, you know, going to translate to the next person if they just flat out refuse to teach a new guy, or if they, you know, have a bad day, wake up hungover and just don't feel like doing it the right way, even though they know how to do it the right way, you know? And those things are definitely what we look for as well. And I mean, every now and then you get a unicorn that has the right attitude with the right aptitude already pre-built because they came from a great place. They love what they do, right. But But I'd rather take a greenhorn
We
and
did
show
too.
them the
Yep.
best way to do it than to take somebody with all the experience in the world that doesn't want to get better, that doesn't want to help the other team members get better, that thinks that they're God's gift to moving, but in reality that, they're that's just what they're stuck doing, and they let their ego kind of get in the way, and they're their own worst enemy at the end of the day to help you replicate that across the rest of the culture in the company.
Well, and I think too, it's easy to, I know I've done it in the past, it's easy to want the name mover in town or that, but the money, if you rate movers A, B, and C, your money's made with B and C movers. You know what I mean? Like all day long, give me the B or C. Let me train him. Let me get him cultured up.
Because you can turn him into an A player.
You can turn him into an A player, and he's going to be loyal. A lot of times, and so that's something too when you're building culture is to try to. We had very little turnover. My my track record is little turnover, and you're always going to have new guys coming and going and stuff like that. But like I'm talking about as a core, I think a company's measured on its turnover. You know what I mean? If you've got upper management that's stable, that's there, that's and you got your crew leaders that've been. I mean, I had crew leaders that been with me 8 and 10 years. To me, that's a sign of a good company. They take care of their people. And sometimes you gotta do things outside the box, man. I mean, I bought cars for crew leaders. It just depends on who it is, they pay you back. But like all that's culture I think it's my job when I'm trying to build culture to really get to know somebody. And Hale at Next Stop has come up with a real good process. I'd never done it, but he now has his operations guy every so many times a week. He has to do a one-on-one with everybody. And he does them individually. So it's like, I'm going to spend 10 minutes with Wade this morning, right? And I'm going to get to know Wade. And I'm going to know about his wife and what he do for the weekend and his kids. And that's something he'll come up with. And I think it's great is that, I want you to know every one of these employees. If you're an operations manager, you need to know everything about their life. And
Yeah.
and they
Jackie Fisher talks a lot about that. I had her on the podcast probably a little less than a year ago. She wrote a really good book, though. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it right now. I think it's sitting on my bookshelf behind me. But the growth paradox, that's what it's called. And she talks about how she does one-to-ones with her core leadership every single week, and she expects them to do one-to-one
correct
with their subordinates every single week. And we started implementing that and have seen a lot of really positive changes, because how often does an owner go, maybe they show up to a monthly meeting, or maybe they show up to a, team meeting here and there, but they're not having those one-on-one mentorship conversations. And when you prioritize those, they'll start to prioritize them beneath them, and they'll find out the dreams, the passions, the needs of the people under them, and get to know them on a personal level, get to know their wife's name, their kids' names, what sports they play, whatever it might be, what their passions are. And that means a lot to a person, knowing that they're not just a number, they're not just a cog in the wheel, they're a human that is treated like a human.
And I just with my experience, right? And like, so I definitely agree with you on that. It's paramount because I don't believe everything's about money, right? Like I think employees come to us and I need this, or I'm going to a competitor, and I think customers same thing. If you don't give me this price, I'm going to we know to talk about money, right? But like I think that's always surface, right? I don't think money has
it's just a piece.
Money doesn't have a relationship. It's something we get more of, right? Like it's just it comes, it goes. We got to have it, whatever. But there was a situation where I was approached several times when I was running stuff for Chris. There was a time in which there was 2 times in which I considered leaving, but it was the hardest thing. Well, I didn't do it. It would have been the hardest thing I had to do, and it was due to the relationship. Had he not built that relationship with me, I probably would have did something with Eric. I probably would have did something with Wayne Rader. You know what I mean? There was guys that were coming, and they were coming hard, and so even when things were tough, and just like any relationship, right? So once you get really close to somebody, you're going to have arguments, man. And we had them, you know what I mean? Because
it's healthy.
Yeah,
you got to talk about that
pushing.
stuff.
We were pushing extremely hard. We get passionate, and it just there was times where things would blow up, you know what I mean? And him and I would, but it was always Chris was good about it was always this call an hour later, man. Like you do realize like you're not going anywhere, like we're never separating, right? You do realize. It was just that but you like you said it. I think it's necessary, and I think it made both of us look at certain things at different times. Like well, maybe he's right, maybe
it allows you to have those constructive conversations that need to be had rather than just letting them fester and build up resentment and everything else. When you're comfortable enough with the people that you work with, or a business partner, or a boss, a subordinate, whoever it might be, to be able to kind of express that frustration and know that, I stand by this one thing. I mean, Chad's my partner in the moving Titan stuff, and we
Right.
don't always see eye to eye on things. We'll go head to head with each other, but at the end of the
Right.
day, we know we love each other like
And you got
brothers,
each
and
other's
like,
back. That's right.
yeah, we got each other's back. Like, listen, man, if this is that important to you, let's go ahead and do it. Let's run it that way. I thought this might be the better answer, but I can tell you're really passionate about this way to do things, and we'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, we'll go do something else. But I think it's healthy to have those conversations, and they're not always fun ones to have. But I got to
They're
be able,
not.
if I'm working with somebody, to have a constructive conversation and them to at least be receptive to hearing it and give me the respect to hear me out. And I'll do the same
Correct.
with them. As
Correct.
soon as you have an employee or somebody that you work with that they throw a meltdown temper tantrum because you wrote them up for being late, and they don't want to hear it because they do all this other stuff in the business. They're allowed to be late one day. Well, no, you're not. How you do
Right.
things is how you do everything. And if you have people working under you and they see you being late, then that's going to cause problems. We had that issue with somebody recently with a sales manager, and we let them go back in January because it just wasn't. We could not have a constructive conversation with this person. They just wouldn't hear it. Their way was the only way in their mind, and they weren't able to. We weren't able to have those difficult, arguments and things like that, because it would just result in a meltdown, and he was in a leadership position, and you can't have that's toxic. But if
Yeah,
you're able
right.
to have a direct conversation with somebody because you both know each other, you both respect each other, you both trust each other, and you walk away with a better understanding of each person's point of view, and you can make actions based off of that, where you're both in agreement to support one another and have each other's back, rather than have one person now disgruntled and wanting to tear it all down because they want to prove their point more than they want to prove the end result that you're both trying to ultimately get to. Then those types of relationships are, I think that's important to have.
It
I'm
is,
curious to hear. Oh, go
and
ahead.
I think too, like life has a way, man. You know what I mean? Like I'm excited about my next journeys and whatever it is, and it's just like I've learned so much through. I don't know how much I've learned through success, right? But I've learned a whole lot through failure.
Yep.
I've learned a lot through price tags. And I think that's human nature, right? Because it's like, but like just being able to look at things from hindsight, and to what you're talking about, like I would always be, I'm very headstrong. Chris was too, but like, and Josh and Hale are similar, right? They got that same kind of yin and yang that I'm working with, and it's like, But here's the thing: I knew what I did in Raleigh didn't work in Greensboro. It didn't work at our Greensboro location. Wilmington did things very different than Raleigh. Wilmington and Raleigh were never set up with systems processes. That was Chris's kind of thing. So what we did was we had them divided, right? He's like, these are yours, these are mine. You manage these people. I'll take care of these. You stay out of you stay out of my lane. Don't worry about systems and processes in my store. Like, what I mean? He didn't like that. He would get all, why are you looking at my stuff kind of thing. But like, but what I found is that like when you have a vision, it's what you're talking about, right? Is I can't have all the answers, right? Because you might be down in Florida at a brand. It may, what I'm doing in Raleigh might not click. So we got to collaborate and try to figure out. We still want the same end goal. How do we get there? And one thing we've done with Next Stop, real quick, is how we implement. We're implementing. This is where we're beating. I love what you were talking about with the confirmation calls and stuff. So we use those as sales opportunities, right? So when we're booking the job, we don't try to sell full value protection. Then we don't. We book it because we're dealing with the competition of the price issue, right? But once we got you on a calendar, we're going to call you a week out, and we're going to talk to you about floor protection. We're going to talk to you about full value protection. You're already my client. You've already paid deposit. We got you. Like, you're not leaving, right? I mean, you could, but like they're not.
Right.
And then we're going to talk about all the upsells. I know you said you were doing the packing, Miss Jones, but let me just ask you a question. Did you think about the lamps and the lampshades? If I can't get $200 a move on miscellaneous stuff, and now what we've done, so we've got operations doing that on the confirmation call, and then we go a third step. And the third step is we got the crew leader selling now. They got a speed pack, they've got a few boxes, and it's their job to not come back with those boxes. I'm not saying rip anybody off, right? But like their job is to find opportunities, for those last minute items that didn't get packed. Nobody packs the lampshade. You know what I mean? Like, just think about it. Like you always can get something.
Yeah, it's not going to make or break a move over $30.
It's not going to make or break a move.
Whatever it is, and then you multiply that by 1,000 moves a year or more, and you've got a full-time salary because of those upsells.
Correct. And then I like to tell the movers, you think you're hurting your tip. You know what I mean? You think you're hurting your tip, right? So you want to leave these boxes off, or rip the company off out of this $40 because you want to get a better tip. I'm gonna take this. You know what I mean? We've all done it. Like I've been there, I've done it. But what you're really doing is, and if you're not selling it, you're really shorting the customer. Because we are running a risk of damaging the lampshade. If you don't put the lampshade in the box, it's either going to get dirty, dusty, something's going to happen that's going to break. So you're doing the customer a disservice. And so that's the way we lead into. You talk about the culture and the training. Is we're really training them to you're really short-changing the customer. And 9 times out of 10, the customers that tip the best, we charge for everything. It's a low average. I've seen it a million times. You think you're going to hook them up with this TV box, and they don't even tip you. Charge them for the TV box, and you get the tip.
Well, it shows you got your stuff together. Customers they want to see that you're running a tight ship. And when you're giving away things, when you're cutting a couple corners because you think you're going to ultimately help them, it just kind of shows a little bit of unprofessionalism. It shows that you run loose. And customers will respect the tight run ship. They're going to be looking over everything less with a fine tooth comb, looking for problems when they see, oh wow, like they know what they're doing here. And plus if it makes that average ticket go up, even though there's, not a hard set rule like at a restaurant where it's, 15, 20, 25% tips, it still increases that average ticket size. And they want to do something relatively proportionate. They've got their pocketbook open. And I like to say the second sale is always the easiest. You walk into the grocery store to buy one thing, you end up walking out with like 5 different things, because you're already ready to spend a little bit of money. And what's another $20 here or there? Same kind of concept. They're already spending some money. They'll probably spend a little bit more when they see the value in it because they're already kind of in that mindset, and that includes passing over the tip. But Larry, we're running low on time here. I did want to talk a little bit here about, it sounds you've got a new book out, or you're working on getting that out. And
yeah, I got one out. It's called The House Always Wins, and really it's just a mini story of my journey to this point. And I do talk a lot about what's the cause, man? Like, and I think that's what I like working with, and that's really what my passion is at this point is what's your company? Who's it helping? What's the vessel? Is it helping the community? I'm still involved. Chris and I were, and I'm still heavily involved with homeless shelters and trying to help people with addiction and stuff like that. And really it's just like, and those are the things that, when I'm focused on being of service to people, my community, my employees and stuff like that, God blesses the business. And when I'm not focused on money, and that's what I'm talking about. The house always wins. And that's kind of what happened, man. Like the truth of the story is, we got so big, and Chris and we got focused on, buying bigger lake houses, and we shifted, man. And I don't think it meant to happen, but I think the focus got away from who were we helping on a daily basis, and really staying in the trenches, Philippians 4:13 on the back of every one of our trucks. And we just kind of shifted our way. And so it's a little story about like, the debt's going to get called, man, if I don't continue to stay focused. And that's really what it's about. And I'm just sharing with people. It's just my story, of addiction and stuff like that. And how the only way I know is to try to help people and not be so consumed with myself. And then how do I take that and implement that in business? And that's what Chris and I were successful with, is like, how do we take this stuff and just be good people? What a lot of people would say, just be good people, just be a good person, but actually impact lives.
Yeah. And where can you get that copy of that? Because
it's on Amazon. Yeah, it's on Amazon. And then awesome. Writing another one too. Like I'm almost finished with it. I'm writing a daily read for the moving industry. It's like just a short spiritual reading each day. I've seen a company do it in town, and they kind of do that in their crew meetings. They just kind of get their mind wrapped around just not being so self-absorbed. You know what I mean? I think it's human nature. That is, how much tip am I going to? I used to do it. I would come in, I would look at my tablet, and I'd be like, who's my customer? Oh, I wonder if they're going to tip. I'm going to try to read a name and try to see if I can get a tip before I've even gotten out there to do the job. You know what I mean? Like, how about we shift the focus of, and this is what I think is going to help culture of moving companies, is how do we shift the focus from that to, man, we're going to be the best moving company, and we're going to go help Miss Jones today. And it's our grandma. We're moving her grandma. And I talk about that in my training. We move everybody like it's my grandma stuff. Would you move your grandma stuff that way? Then don't move my customers. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, but a lot of what I do is, and even with owners and employees and stuff, is like, how do we shift a mindset, from half empty to half full? And that's a lot of my mission and what I want to do with my life at this point, and try to help transform lives.
What are some of the services you're offering with Uplift LLC? Are you You working, taking on any more clients right now, or are you
I
doing one
am.
project at a time?
My original thought, it's kind of crazy how it worked. My original thought was, working with a limited number. I've looked at, what you guys do. I think what I want to do is a little different than the Titan thing. I want to be a little more
Mhm.
intimate. I want it to be more of a, not really an online sales thing, not really cookie cutter, basically a collaborator, man. Like just I'm here, like, and it can go. I've thought about a couple different programs. But everything from, if you got a guy that wants to franchise, hey, how do you get me ready scale, write franchise manual. I mean, I did all that. I've done all that stuff. I did all that for Miracle. And so we can do, something as simple as that, or hey, I just want sales training. And what I really, really hope to do is to, man, I'd love nothing more than to, Lewis did a great job with it. Probably still does, but like, I'd love nothing more than once a month be in your location. You know what I mean? Like actually come out. Like, so really, really, it's almost a partnership, not looking for a partner, but like almost a partnership of, hey man, when I hire this is what I get, and if you call me because you had a truck accident, how do I navigate this? I know what to tell the insurance company. I know the step, so I don't really know how to put it all in a box. I think it's we do a discovery call. Tell me your dreams, your ambitions, what's your financial, what you're hoping to do. We have a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year plan, and what does that look like? So it could be anything from me helping recruiting to training your salespeople to. I tell you, I've got an employee that reached out to me. This is cool, actually. Maybe I'm not sure if it's similar to what Movers Bees was doing, but I've got a rep that's come out. So I've been using Live Switch. I'm sure you have too, and I know we got to go.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I've even thought about taking some veteran salespeople and putting together, hey man, so you could get this package with me if I'm consulting with you, and guess what? We'll actually do we'll book your jobs too. He
Wow.
wanted to
With
head that
Live
up,
Switch virtually.
and and here's the deal. Really, with Live Switch, it's really a game changer.
Yeah.
Really, I just need a closer.
Hmm.
At that point, I just need a closer. You know what I mean? I need somebody that's good with the client, that knows how to sell the job, that can do it with honesty and integrity. And I think that's what I would love to make an impact in the industry. And we did this. I've done it in the past, and I'll do it again. It's like, how do we raise the numbers for everybody with integrity? Stop the undercutting, stop the, you know what I mean? We're hurting each other when we do that. Like, how do we collaborate together, create unity in the industry and in each little market, and everybody wins?
That's absolutely right. There's enough to go
It's
around for everybody in this business with the
yeah.
mentality of abundance. I love that. Well, how can people get in touch with you, Larry, if they want to talk more about some of the
So
services that you
yeah,
offer?
upliftusa.com is the best way. I'm on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Awesome. Upliftusa.com. Yeah, well, I'm going to look into that more too, because I mean, we're always looking to get better. We're always looking to improve, and you've definitely shown a track record of taking businesses to the next level. And you're definitely an asset to the entire industry, and any companies that choose to work with you, or definitely checking out your book as well, because that sounds like a really motivating, inspirational story that you have. I know we've talked a little bit about it, but to hear some of those details, uh, and the nuances of what allowed you to become where you're at today and helping as many people as you can with what you're doing is really cool stuff. So thank you for coming on this
Thank
podcast. It
you,
was great
Wade. I
catching up.
appreciate it.
I definitely look forward to staying in touch with you
Yeah,
and talking about
absolutely.
some of our needs, and seeing what we can do together to help
Okay.
uplift the entire moving industry. So
I
thank you.
love it. All right.
Yeah, well, this has been an awesome episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. Larry Hinnant with Uplift LLC and the author of The House Always Wins, currently working on his second book. Larry, let's stay in touch, and
Sounds
we'll
good.
see you guys next time.
All right, Wade. Have a good one.